KOKOLIRIKO live show, and I must inform you that we are counting down hours. That is to the 62nd edition of Uganda's Independence Day celebrations. But how is this day coming on your side? Are you already prepared for it? And this is actually where, in the rural areas, the excitement is actually more. I don't know why, but I want to inform you that really in the villages, the preparations are very much high. You will realize that there's preparations going on right now in most of the rural districts. And I was able to see videos from Yumbe district circulating where learners and pupils of different schools are already preparing. And you really realize that most of them are moving down in streets. And that means the preparation has actually been set. And people are waiting for the D-Day, which is actually tomorrow. And right now, people are counting down minutes. Others have bought new clothes. Others have bought chicken just to wait for this day, as others already spared their money for what we call buying meat. It means that this day is actually one of those important days in their lives. And that means we must honor this day because it is actually a time when we got independence. That is from the government, the British government, also really in the year 1962, which was on the 9th, which is tomorrow. And today we are just counting down minutes. Tomorrow is a public holiday, but I want to show you, I will be here still with you to also let you know what is happening and what this day means. And that will only be tomorrow. But I want to take this opportunity to welcome you on board from wherever you are watching us from. It could be within West Nile sub-region, the districts of Bongi, Madiokolo, Yumbe, Terego, Zombo, Nebi, Pakwach, and the rest of the local governments, not forgetting the Mother Arua district, which is also really where many of us could be watching us from. It's a great pleasure having you on board this morning. Welcome. And not forgetting those within Arua city, where the headquarters are. And you will be also really realizing that many people are already preparing for this day and tomorrow to also go out to several hangout places. But we are saying enjoy responsibly because this day will come and go. But how you spend it is what matters. And that means you must celebrate this day in a way that is a bit responsible. Because if you're not going to be celebrating it in a responsible way, you will be the one to regret in the coming days. But it will not be good for you to spend money just in one day and then regret in the next coming days. I do understand that right now, also the learners of primary 7 and senior 4 are already preparing. That is for their final examinations. And this is where we must enjoy the day responsibly. We must spend wisely so that we can be able to solely extend some of this money to those colleagues, more so our daughters and sisters, our brothers and our siblings who may be in schools preparing for this day here. It would be quite well for us to actually spend this money with them, extend a hand to them. That would be quite good other than wasting it in one day in terms of drinking alcohol, in terms of spending it on enjoyments, but that will not be quite well. But I really to assure you, we are following up on this day to see how the day will be climaxing tomorrow. But in a special way, I want to welcome you and say Happy Independence Day to all. And this is also to all the Ugandans and all the Pan-Africanists, because this is a day that will not be only celebrated by Ugandans. I remember when we were celebrating one for DRC, Ugandans were able to already extend shout-outs to their colleagues in the Democratic Republic of Congo. When South Sudan had their own, Ugandans still were able to also say happy independence to our brothers and sisters in South Sudan in there. And it looks like in West Nile sub-region, the preparations are set. And we shall be following up to see how this day will be going on. And we are going to be putting our reporters across all the areas to see how this goes on in West Nile sub-region. And the worst district will be mentioned, and I will be here to also say this district had this and that come Friday, and this will also be letting you know how it has actually gone. And I will be here on Thursday morning to also let you know how the preparations are already are heading on and how they are getting done in there. But tomorrow we shall be following up and to see how this day goes on. And that is where we are going to be also leaving a discussion aside. And really leaving that story aside, you realize there's also really concern rising as many teachers are now heading in for what we call early retirement. What is forcing them? The hard working conditions, sometimes coupled with the poor pay, is now forcing many teachers into early retirement. And this has been worsened by the new teacher policy and the teacher bill, which the teachers feel is unfair. Because let's look at a scenario where a science teacher of secondary school is earning 4 million, and then that colleague of arts is earning about 1 million at most 1 million. And that is something which most of the teachers feel is a bit unfair to them, and that is why most of them are saying, other than me being in classroom stress, why don't I engage in this and that? That's why we're seeing many teachers today are businessmen. I will be able to tell you how many teachers are really doing well in business here in a rural city. You move in the streets, you know that there are teachers who are doing well, who are tremendously doing well when it comes to business. So I think that is one factor. The poor pay is already forcing many teachers into early retirement. And then secondly, the science teachers, they also, the teacher policy and the teacher bill is a bit unfair in a way that after some 2 years of working, where the teachers also really accumulate their money, the 4 million also in there, they find it really quite well to retire, and they retire and do most of the time in their private schools and private teaching in there after retiring from government. And that means they will be eating their money in terms of also gratuity here and there. But really that leaves the science teachers really more to an advantage than the arts teachers. What will this imply to the arts teachers? And really I want to say government is a bit also unfair, and that is where most teachers have been also calling for government to make a review of the teacher policy in there to make sure there's some bit of equity in terms of treatment for both the arts and science teachers, and that would make it also good for them to also understand why they need to be in the classrooms. And that is one area which I feel at the end of the day where government also should be able to sort of hit the demands of the teachers. And recently we had the World Teachers Day, which was on 5th October. That was on Saturday. This issue actually vividly featured. But what does this imply? And are we ready for also the review of the teacher policy? And what those changes you feel must be addressed? And most teachers actually center their demands around welfare, because they feel the welfare of the teachers is not well. And that is one issue I also want to agree to, because you realize that if a teacher is earning for primary around 500,000, how many children does this teacher have? How many guardian, maybe how many children is he a guardian to? Because today you realize most of the parents, most of the relatives feel for their children to study, they must live with relatives. They must live with relatives who are teachers. And all the burden is transferred on the teacher, who has to also really miserably really distribute the money. So I think it is also something which government must be able to also listen to, and that would also really make it also really good for teachers to also really have a good working environment. That's not my message, but it's a message for most of the teachers, which I feel must also really be echoed, because if you look at the way how teachers are really retiring, most of them are actually retiring before the mandatory retirement age. What does this imply, and what does this mean to the teaching profession? We are likely to have a world without teachers, and I really want to say a world without humanities is actually a world that will be damned. Let's look at a scenario where there are no lawyers, where there are no policemen, because most of them are actually doing administration, and that is where you find out that there will be challenges. A world with scientists alone, I don't think if it will be quite well, and that is where equal pay will be the solution to also addressing some of those concerns, which at the end of the day will be putting most of the teachers at par. So I think that is one area which government must be able to listen to and improve on, because if at all government does not work on that, then more teachers will continue to resign. At the end of the day, we are going to be seeing a scenario without teachers, and I don't know what that means. At the end of the day, you realize that would also be having its own challenges and repercussions, and that is where we shall be leaving that discussion aside. Remember, if you look at the world of teachers, the population of teachers is actually dropping, and you realize this is actually attributed to a number of factors, because first of all, of poor pay, which many of teachers also recite, and you realize most of the teachers who are not also in government also payroll, end up doing other things where they find fortunes. They continue with that. You look at scenarios where today many of teachers are leaving the country for greener pastures abroad. So I think that is one area which government must also really work on, and that would also really help retain many of teachers into the teaching profession, because a world without teachers is really a world, I don't know how, because most of the teachers, most of their professions, I must say all the professions, are produced by the teachers, because really you look at how that also really means, you will know that it is quite important for government to improve on the welfare of all the teachers, and that would be quite well because of the saying, because of the world we are, and that is something also something of that sort. And really, you realize that is actually the slogan, which is pushing many of teachers to work hard, and that is one thing also which at the end of the day I must also acknowledge, that teachers indeed are doing a great job. And if government does not also hit these demands, we are likely to witness more teachers retiring in there, and that is where we shall be leaving the discussion aside. And now still looking at what's happening in the recently released National Population and Housing Census report, UBOS, which is the body mandated to also overlook at the affairs, has now pulled down the census report that was posted on their website. What are the reasons? And this is actually following an outburst that was witnessed on social media, sparking debate. That is on the other media, various media platforms, where today most of the people are talking about this, on radios, on TVs, on newspapers, and on social media. That is where the discussion is actually very, very much on. And this follows the contradicting report of some of the tribes where their numbers drastically reduced in there. And people have asked questions: did we produce? Did we have maybe wars that could have actually made us lose our population? Did we have any other disaster that led to many deaths? And these are the unanswered questions that we also witnessed as per the census report, which has now been pulled. And the UBOS executive director, Mukiza, has actually attributed this to human error in there. But now you realize this did not go on well with a section of people who actually sparked debate in there, because as per the report, we are able to see population of actually dropping, and that is also really where we did see the Bagisu also had the population as well following in there. Now the report sparked public debate, which I must say today is something that we are talking about. But now UBOS has officially pulled down the report from their website, also really following the concerns that were raised by different stakeholders in there, because if you look at now the correct statistics, and this is also really where we are now seeing also the Bachiga population rising, the Langi also having their population rise as well, and the Bagisu not forgetting also in them there, where the population have risen drastically in there. Actually, slightly also really witnessed now the population rising, and these are the people, these are the tribes that had errors in their population in there, because if you look at the actually, people asking themselves, don't we produce? Did we have any wars? Why will their population maybe drop? But then the question is, why must people complain if at all the population is not exactly theirs? This is where I want to understand. I do understand that soil population comes with its own advantages. First of all, when it comes to resource allocation, could that be the factor? Could that be the reason as to why there was a public outcry when it comes to this report? These are the unanswered questions which I feel I should have had answers to. But then we are not going to be forcing anybody to answer these questions. But then the correct information have been given, where the people, the tribes which had errors have already been corrected also when it comes to those issues in there. And that is according to Mr. Chris Mukiza, who is the executive director, that is for UBOS, and where he did attribute the delays and also the correct factors, that is to human errors in there. But now we hope this does not happen, and really this is also where I want to ask myself, how many of us were counted and how many of us were not counted? Because within that period, some people claim that they were not counted. And what does this imply to these figures? Because are these figures just estimates? Or these are the exact numbers? Because some people are saying they were not counted. What about those groups that were not counted? Because also many people said they were not counted. So what does this mean? And what about the population that was not counted? Where are we going to be capturing them? So this is where we also need to understand that indeed this, maybe these figures could have had errors, but all in all, we must now go with what we have. And government will now use this to plan for us the next 10 years, because the National Population and Housing Census exercise is an activity that is carried out in a decade time. That means it is carried out every 10 years. But then the question is, are we satisfied with the current numbers that we have? That is entirely in your hands. You can share your thoughts and opinions, if at all you are watching us on the various social media platforms, and we shall be able to check through some of your comments and read through later on in there. And still within, as per the report, we are witnessing disaster where youth unemployment is actually said to be very much high in northern and eastern regions, where most of the youths are said to be struggling in these areas. And I want to say it out with this report, because you move to Buganda, you move to also other areas, you know that youths are doing their activities, but then you move to these regions of northern Uganda, eastern, most of the people are struggling. So what does that mean? And this is actually one area where we must also really work towards. And as per Western Sub-region and as per Northern entirely, we must make sure that also we work hard towards changing this fact, because I believe this is the fact, and this is as per this census report in there, where Bukedi, Lango, Busoga, and Karamoja sub-regions have the highest percentage, that is also of the youth population, not also in employment in there, and this is actually where you must also be worried of, because if you look at Karamoja, Bukedi, Lango, and really this is where you must also have challenges, and most of them are actually not said to be also in education or training, while Chigezi and Ankole have the lowest percentage. If you look at Chigezi and Ankole, this is actually where the numbers are said to be very much lower, and disparities in access to what we call public social services and job opportunities are actually areas where also really this also really is not sparing the people also really of these sub-regions. And now this information is contained in the National Population and Census Excess, which has now been pulled down. But we hope these figures can be changed, and as people of the sub-regions, we must actually make sure that we work towards changing the fact. And the fact can also be changed, and that is only through support from government and also mindset change, because mindset change is actually very much important and paramount in changing this fact in there. If at all, as people of Western sub-region, we get opportunities and work towards maybe fostering them, and then at the end of the day, trust me, we are going to be also really changing all the fact, and that would make it possible for us to also really move away from the fact that youth employment is highest in our region, and that would also really maybe push this to another region, but that cannot come possible if at all we are still having that poor mindset, and that is where we are indeed going to be living with that discussion and still looking at more of the stories. Definitely a lot is happening, but that is also really something we must also really be able to talk about, and that is where we must be able to check ourselves. We must be able to check our neighborhoods, if at all they are either employed or unemployed, and can we be able to also be of support to them if at all they are indeed in the unemployment bracket. We must be able to create employment opportunities for them, for those who have the capital and those who have the powers, to also really be able to also really support their colleagues, and that would be able to make it quite possible for them to also really understand and work towards their dreams in there. And that's where we're going to be leaving the discussion aside, as we're running out of time. We still have lots of stories to give you, and if you look at what's happening in the world of politics, you realize there's really indeed a lot more happening in there, where now the TC Katonga faction charts their own course. That is solely for new party, is another story that we are seeing right now in the papers. This is on the monitor, where the leaders of the Forum for Democratic Change Katonga faction yesterday also initiated the registration process that is for their new political party, which is known as the People's Front Freedom, PFF in abbreviations in there. And now the acting president, that is Mr. Elias Lukwago, who is also the lead mayor for Kampala, flagged off the collection that's also of signatures from voters across the entire country, where they will be looking forward to also really see this political party be registered in there. Now we explained that no complete also really the registration. The group's leaders also really that to complete the group's registration process, the group leaders must collect at least 50 signatures from each district, covering what we call a third of the district across the country, and that is where we shall be seeing them also already moving to see how they can be in position to raise the signatures. And we are waiting to see how the team will be reaching in Arua, and those leaders who will be moving from the FDC Najana Kumbi to cross to Katonga faction, where they will be following and forming up their new political party, which is known as the PFF. And that is only where we shall be seeing, if at all, this political party will be picking it up in Western sub-region, or it will still be the other existing political parties to still have their roots stronger in here. And that is one area which we are yet looking out forward to. And that is one area which also we must also be able to talk about. And now the acting public secretary, that's Mr. Ibrahim Semujunganda, also said that they have also started collecting signatures from voters in areas of Kampala and Wakiso district, and they will therefore embark on the other districts, and that means where they have started from Kampala and Wakiso, which are actually areas of high population, then they will be crossing over to the rest of the districts to also see to it that they raise the required number of signatures, and that is one area which will also be able to allow them to also have this political party registered ahead of 2026, where we are just counting less than about 14 months. But are we ready for a new political party known as the PFF? Is the question also really which must be running out at the back of our minds right now, because if you look at the PFF, it is also having strong leaders which you cannot underscore, and the FDC Natana Kumbi is also yet another political party which I must say is still strong, with its stronghold also in Western Sub-region, and this was clearly exhibited when the two camps also we are in a rural city here. But we are following up, and yesterday we were able to sort of see authorities and officials from both factions also have camping in a rural city here, where they were for the memorial mass. That is to remember one of the former leaders who was under the Forum for Democratic Change, that is John Arumadri, who was the former member of parliament for Madiokolo, who passed on a few months ago. And now yesterday we were able to see the team joining, that is for what we call a memorial mass. And that is something we did see happening in there yesterday. And he said officials would conduct consultative meetings in all districts across Uganda and also collect signatures during those meetings in there. And this is a development which we are following up. And this comes after the Electoral Commission also gave the faction the green light to register the party, providing them with the necessary also registration forms and guidelines in there. And that is one area which we are going to following up on. They are supposed to submit the full names and address of at least 50 members from at least 2/3 of the districts in Uganda's traditional geographical locations. And that is one area which we are following up on. Will they get the signatures? Are you ready to also be part of the signatures? And this new political party is another story that we must also be able to maybe talk about. But that is not entirely where we are going to be centering our discussions. But still, to look at some of the stories happening elsewhere, we are seeing Matthias Mpuga also warning the Justice and Constitutional Affairs Minister, Norbert Mao, whom he says Mao is cooking hot air in his electoral reforms kitchen, is another thing that we are seeing. But what does this mean for Matthias Mpuga to come out and say this statement in here? And this statement, I know, means a lot. But former leader of opposition parliament, Matthias Mpuga, has said Justice and Constitutional Affairs Minister Norbert Mao is carrying around empty voting ink cans and selling it also for electoral reforms. And that is one thing we did see also where he made the remarks on also one of the discussions on Monday over the longer-awaited electoral reforms. And the Nyendo Mkuge member of parliament accused Minister Mao of also misleading the public with these hollow promises. And that is one thing that we must also say Mr. Mpuga is not happy about. And Mpuga said Mao is yet to also present any concrete proposals, describing the minister's assurances as hot air. But are we ready for all these reforms? Because if you look at the reforms, this is actually where the public outcry and public debate has been very much centered on for the last weeks, where you read many people have been talking about this issue of the reforms. But then the question is, are we ready for these reforms as a country? First of all, where many people are talking about is for the president to be voted by the members of parliament only. That means it will be the parliamentarians to decide who will lead the country. Many people have actually raised their issues about that. I wouldn't also want to talk about and also talk about it and add my own input on it. But many people have talk about this same issue of parliamentarians being in charge of also responsible for electing the president. Then secondly, the women members of parliament to only serve for a period of 2 terms, and after that you become ineligible to also aspire for the next elections in there. All this has been in that also from. Then thirdly, elections to be done electronically. This is actually where another area where many people have been talking about, because as a country, many people feel we are not yet ready for these reforms. First of all, as a country, we are not ready to vote electronically. But don't you think we must also really embrace some of these new developments? Because I feel that is modernization, because many of the times we are talking about modernization. Even the elders are saying we are modern elders. You realize also most of the grandfathers who can be able to solely afford the smartphones, have the smartphones, and they access the information on their palms. And that is where they feel they are modern elders. But are we ready for all this? What is the population of who have the smartphones in this country? How many people can be able to solely afford data? As we are seeing, one of the proposals is to have elections be conducted electronically. And that is where many people have been also really able to talk about these developments. And now that is also an area which I feel must also really be looked out to. If you look at this development, many people have not been happy about it. Most of the political scholars and analysts say that this is actually something that will be undermining the democracy of this country. And do you think it is right? oh, we are not ready for this development as a country. I will be leaving that discussion in there. I wouldn't want to wade on with it. But that is still a developing story. In case of any development like that, we shall still be here to also let you know how it is going on and how it is progressing. Because if you look at all these issues, quite often many people do not feel happy about the proposals. And do you think these proposals are right? I leave it entirely in your hands to also share your thoughts and share your opinions. But leaving that aside, and still within the camp of FDC Nanjana Nkumbi calls for review of the 2024 census methodology after discrepancies, and that is one thing also where we did see UBOS coming out to pull down the report. Now the Forum for Democratic Change Party has expressed concerns after the release and also of the census results, citing inaccuracy and transparency of the recently launched also Uganda National Housing and Census Report of 2024, which claims that the country's population has reached 45.9 million, and that is one area which also many people have been also able to talk about. Now, the census report revealed by Uganda Bureau of Statistics, UBOS, on October 2nd has been met with allegations of manipulation and inaccuracy from the opposition party, which is also known as the Forum for Democratic Change Nanjana Nkumbi faction. And at the end of the day, you realize there's really a lot more that needs to be done. But really, I want to see if at all the PFF will be formed and FDC will remain as FDC without necessarily calling them Nanjana Nkumbi or Katonga, because I believe after the formulation of the PFF, we shall be seeing FDC remaining as a sole political party. Now the PFF will be remaining as PFF, and the description of Nanjana Nkumbi and Katonga, which I must say, to me is not right, because all these political parties will be independent bodies. If at all, Electoral Commission clears them in there, and that would also really see people clearly stating FDC or PFF, and that would be quite well. Now we are seeing, according to FDC's Deputy Secretary for Publicity, that is Mr. Walid Lubega, the census was conducted under the Uganda Bureau of Statistics Act, which is of 1998, but fell significantly short in terms of what we call transparency and accountability during the data collection and reporting processes. And that is why I was able to earlier on ask you, were you counted? Do you think your data was captured? Or you were among the category that missed being counted in there? And that is one area where we are now seeing the FDC accusing and also the UBOS for also those issues of inaccuracy. Now the accusation also comes in the wake of UBOS removing the census report from its website also after the public backlash, that is through contradicting figures. That is also really one area which we did see standing in there. Now, for instance, also as per the report, it will indicate that the dramatic population declined in Acholi sub-region from 2,131,000 to about 1,100,000 something, and that is one area where we also did see Bugishi population drastically reducing in there, where many people also really stressed challenge and also really cited concern over the accuracy of this report. But do you think we need to conduct a new census report? Do you think we must be counted afresh? That is entirely in your hands. But that is also where we are going to be leaving the discussions in relation to the national population and census exercise aside as we plan, and also really heading for yet another short commercial break, where we are going to be still looking at many, many stories happening in our second hour of the show. This is still the KOKOLIRIKO Live, happening each and every Mondays to Fridays, right from 7 o'clock until 9 o'clock. And in case you are still on your bed, maybe thinking and also really still saying, let me first take a small rest, I will be going in the next 30 minutes. Please, the sun is up, the cock crow did go on earlier on, meaning you must now jump out of that bed and prepare to also go start hustling, to also find something small that would be able to enable you to solely achieve and also get something small for your pockets. Because if you talk about issues of money, definitely you must work for it. And that's why we're going to be taking a short commercial break. My name is Farish Majid. Stay tuned.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
Jude Bellingham, Vinicius Jr., Lamine Yamal, Antoine Griezmann. La Liga comes to Star Times.
A wild celebration!
The big stars, the tiki-taka football, Real Madrid and Barcelona live in your living room.
Real Madrid, the team of dreams!
Catch all 380 games live and in HD on Sports Premium Channel 259 and Channel 246 starting this August 15th. Subscribe to StarTimes Classic or Smart Bouquet at 36,000 Uganda shillings to enjoy the football experience affordably. StarTimes Football and Limited Passion.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
Four minutes after 8 o'clock. Welcome back from the short commercial break. We are already into our second hour of the show, and this is where I want to take this single opportunity to welcome you on board. In case you're just joining us right now, I want to say welcome to the KOKOLIRIKO live show, where in case you also watching us for the very first time, I want to inform you that this is actually the program where we give information, where sometimes solely we host guests on topical issues where we feel you must also really maybe get information, where we also bring them on board sometimes, where we ask them questions and the guests respond, and that also enables you to get the information that you may need also to understand in there, and that is where we are now saying welcome aboard. But this week, and sorry, it is the Independence Week, how ready are you as a citizen to also celebrate this day in there? Because the Independence Week, many people could actually be out there preparing right now by ironing their clothes. Others have already bought new clothes and shoes. Others have also really been able to save for money right maybe from the month of August. Up to now, they have been saving for just this day. And I do understand that in the rural areas, Independence Day celebration is another Christmas or is another Eid perhaps. But all in all, we are following up and to see how this day will be going on. And I was able to see videos happening in some of the areas in Yumbe district, in the rural district, where preparations are actually in high gear, not forgetting in a rural city where in some of the schools, yesterday you read people are preparing for the marching. It means that the learners are actually getting ready, and I was able to see at a rural primary school where people are already practicing marching. It means that the preparations have been in high gear, where people have been waiting for this day to come, which is now tomorrow. But the question is, how is the Independence Day going to be ending for you? you who is planning to celebrate it massively, because when I talk about celebrations in a massive way, definitely people will be able to understand my statement. But I'm saying, please do not overdrink. In case you will be planning to celebrate it massively with caution, because you may celebrate yourself to death. That is what we're not prepared, we may be preparing for, God forbid, because preparations are never meant to end in a bad way. But all in all, we are saying you must take caution of yourself, because life is one. You live it once, and once it's gone, it's gone. There's no way you're going to be coming back. If you get injured, if your legs are broken, it will be you to suffer. So let's celebrate with caution. Let's avoid over-drinking alcohol. I'm not campaigning it, but I'm saying those who are going to be engaging it to come tomorrow, because whether they like it or not tomorrow, we are going to be seeing people who are going to be engaging in alcoholism. But that's not also my business, but I'm saying those who will wish to engage in it, do it with caution. Mind about your life, mind about money, mind about tomorrow. That is where we are living that with that. Ask maybe that kind of action, that is all to you, but we are saying that is it. Starting off our discussions with some of the stories that we are seeing on the paper this morning, teachers have been warned against early retirement and multiple loan accumulations. That is only something which we are seeing this morning, because recently we had also really the World Teachers Day, where this issue very much featured. Everywhere across the country, issues of loans, which are also really multiple on them. And now teachers are being cautioned on early retirement, and multiple loans is another thing that we must also talk about. This is actually the biggest story which also is affecting the education sector. But why is it this is happening? I believe this also traces back to the welfare of the teachers, because if you look at the welfare, sometimes the teachers feel they have not been put as priority in this country. And that is why they resort to early retirement. Most of the science teachers who earn the 4 million, after earning the 4 million for 2 years, somebody saves money, opens a business. And once the business starts doing well, and the person asks themselves, why must I continue with the classroom stress? First of all, where I have to mark huge chunks of books, where I have to hold chalk every time, where sometimes I have to cane the learners. Why must I continue with this stress? Yet I can be able to earn the money in a way that is a bit easier. I remember a scenario where there was a school, a private school, which name I cannot be able to mention, but rumor has it that after the director of the school starting up a farm, he was able to realize a lot of money in bird keeping. And the person asked themselves, why have I been wasting my land on school? The school was normal. The school became history. The learners had to be relocated. The teachers had to also be relocated. So I think that is also one area which must also be looked into, the issue of welfare, which is pushing away many teachers away from the teaching profession. But we are able to also see the teachers being urged to avoid rushing into early retirement. This is because sometimes they rush into the early retirement before preparations or enough preparation, and that is where at the end of the day they also really start regretting. Because if you're not prepared for retirement, much as we always say, you must start preparing for retirement on the first day you get a job. But this is also really something which is contrary and also differently happening from sometimes also the teaching profession, because at the end of the day, that is where people find it quite difficult to also really save the monies. And this caution was issued by the Buyende RDC Betty Akelo during the Teachers' Day celebrations held at Buyende Township School. And Akelo praised also the teachers as critical agents of change and transformation, but warned them of overwhelmed debts by also retiring prematurely before also early preparations in there and before enough preparation as well. And she emphasized what you call governments remaining committed to improving the teachers' also welfare, supporting them for continuous professional development. And if you look at the issues of government support, today many of the teachers are actually resigning and also retiring due to the teacher policy, which many of them feel is unfair. First of all, the teacher-to-learner ratio has been widened and has been also really a challenge. But now with these hard working conditions, what are we likely to see to it that this ratio is going to be like? Let's anticipate the ratio. I want to say it's going to be worsened, where the teacher-to-learner ratio, which is a bit far-fetched, would be worsened. And at the end of the day, the performances of these learners is going to be affected. And she also discouraged the teachers also from early retirement and also the solutions. Today, the teachers also have the umbrella body of UNATU, where there's a circle which many teachers already are not engaging in. But that is also the challenge. So I want to say if the teachers entirely engaged in this circle, you never know, it will be able to solely have also a challenge on them, because they solely some of these financial institutions are taking advantage of the teachers, where teachers' ATMs are being taken away from the teachers, where the national IDs are being taken as collateral, and due to the poor pay, many of the teachers resort to multiple loans. So at the end of the day, you see teachers running up and down, where loan officers look out for these teachers sometimes up the schools. It becomes embarrassing. So the teacher really, I wouldn't also want to encourage you to engage in these multiple loans, more so from the private institutions, where sometimes you are subjected to embarrassment. Because just imagine a scenario where you are busy teaching mathematics or SST or English or science in class. Then a loan officer from financial institution A comes and knocks at the door and says, "Come out, we want our money." And at the end of the day, what kind of reputation are you going to be leaving behind? What kind of respect are the learners going to be giving you? Because at the end of the day, learners do not want to see teachers as poor people. Learners sometimes also really fear the teachers. That's why teachers are being feared. It is just because the learners think that the teachers know everything, and the learners think that the teachers have everything, which is not actually the situation on the ground. So I would also want to encourage the teachers to engage in loans more so from the private institutions, which also in there giving the loans at higher interest rates, and sometimes the mode of payment is a bit unfair. So I think that is also where the teachers must also be able to learn lessons from, and also resist from the practices of what we call multiple loan takings. Because if at all teachers engaging in multiple loans, at the end of the day, running battles is what we tend to see in here. Now the RDC, Ms. Akelo, addressed the allegations so that the parents are not also supporting the schools enough, and clarified the instance is against chasing school children from also over unpaid fees. So I think that is also an area which also must be able to also look. We must also be able to look at. Let's look at also the mass getting down. You know that solely some parents have not paid the school fees, so the schools are going to be sending back the learners for school fees, and at the end of the day, we see this also negative impacting on the academic performance of these learners, and that is also an area which also we must be able to improve on. And leaving that aside, Airtel staff shot dead by suspected warriors in Karamoja, and this is in Kotido district, and this is also in an area where our former RDC is. That is also in the names of Mr. Charles Chogor, who is now the RDC of Kotido, where we are seeing suspected area Karamojong warriors have shot dead and Airtel staff in the names of Stephen Lochu, who has been an agent also in an ambush that was on Monday, October 7th, in Nakore Trading Center in Kotido district. And this is quite unfair and also quite unfortunate a bit, and a regrettable incident also in there. But how shall we see peace happening also in Karamoja sub-region once and for all? And this is also something also where we also need to talk about it. And Lochu had traveled also with the Airtel service providers to the area to sell phones and SIM cards and airtime, when a group of suspected armed assailants attacked them in there, and Vicky Nachan, a resident of Nakuru, described the scene as chaotic, and also with attackers carrying 4 rifles and using it to also carry out their activity in there. Now in response to the attack, we did see officers from Kotido Central Police Station were dispersed to the scene. However, efforts to crack down the perpetrators using the canine dogs were hampered due to crime scene tampering. And this is one area also which I feel I must also be able to talk about. Many times, we as members of public are the ones jeopardizing security operations. You realize an activity, an area where something has happened. People want to go there and see what is happening, other than leaving that area to also really allow these police dogs, the canine dogs, to come and sniff around to trace the perpetrators of these activities. But that is also sometimes because police takes longer. You realize that there's an accident happening or there's a theft happening. Police takes more hours. 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours. That's when they come to the camp and also in the area to also carry out the investigation. So I believe this is also another area which is affecting investigations, and the canine dogs find it now later on difficult because these people move further distances to also be difficult and making it difficult for them to also really see how this also ends. So I think that is also an area which we must also be able to talk about and to make sure that also this does not happen in there. Now, Isaac Oware, the 3rd Division Information Officer, strongly condemned the attack, emphasizing also the joint security forces are actively pursuing the suspects in areas like Maru Kacheri and Lokechembu, and these are areas also Lokomebo areas also where we are seeing the suspected warriors could have also gone to, and Oware reiterated that security officers' commitment to restoring peace and safety in the region. And Lowell Shu's body was taken to Koto General Hospital for a post-mortem also in there. Now the tragic killing also just comes days after a teenager was also killed in there. Now the teenager also and this incident happened in Morulem at the Beam district, and highlighting concerns over rising insecurity in the Karabod sub-regions. And that now talking about a Beam, this is also an area where we are seeing also already suspected warriors also already being in numbers. And some time back, I was in this area where I did also go for some activity. But you know, it becomes quite difficult for these people to be pursued. Because if you look at Karabot sub-region, you know that area has a number of hills and a number of also geographical barriers where if these people cross, it may be quite difficult for them to also be pursued. And now local leaders and residents are calling for what we call increased security measures to prevent further attacks, also to ensure the safety of the community members, an area which also is said to be lacking security. Leaving that aside, Maiga forgives Gashumba after apology for anti-kingdom drivel, and now the Prime Minister, Charles Peter Maiga, that's of Buganda Kingdom, has now forgiven Frank Gashumba over also allegations which we did see in there. Now Gashumba's saliva dried up on Monday, and also Mafwat, a social media personality, also bowed his head at Bulange Mengo and apologized to the Buganda Kingdom through the Katikiro, or the Prime Minister, that's solely of the Kingdom, Charles Peter Maiga, in there, where Mr. Gashumba, the Executive Director, that's solely of Sisimuka, Uganda, has for years lived solely on his tongue and marked himself as a sharp critic of Maiga and the Kingdom, and that's one thing which we did see happening in there. But now we are seeing him also really apologizing to the Kingdom in there, and this is also days after his remarks, and this is also days also after Tamale Mirundi's family apologized to the Kingdom also in there. The Katikiro, Mr. Gashumba has followed suit and also laid down his salvo, and that is one thing also which we are seeing. This follows also days after the family of the late Tamale Mirundi also went on to apologize to the Buganda Kingdom also over the remarks following also the time also when Tamale Mirundi died. The Buganda Kingdom kept quiet, and they kept their resilience and also silence over the same matter, not even extending a condolence message, and yet they were aware. So they say this was actually because they never thought their message would be received. But after the family apologized, we were able to also see the Kingdom forgiving that is also the family of the late Tamale Mirundi in there. Now, Katikiro Maiga emphasized the importance of responsible media usage to promote positivity and unity, as publicly where we did see Mr. Gashumba apologized for past events and also the offensive comments levied against the Prime Minister and the Kingdom, and that's where we did see him also being forgiven. And Gashumba had previously used inappropriate language that shocked many, also using his social media platforms, causing widespread concern. However, in a surprising turn, he issued also a formal apology, acknowledging that the harm also his words caused not only Katikiro Maiga, but the entire Kingdom also in there. Now, Katikiro Maiga also did go on to graciously accept Mr. Gashumba's apology, commending his courage also to admit his mistakes, and he took the opportunity to also urge social media users to use also what we call avoid spreading insults and what we call words that also undermine, and instead use social media to focus on truth and constructive dialogue that fosters understanding and development. Because if you look at the social media usage, just because of that tweet you are doing, it may be enough to actually make the other one feel very bad. It may be enough to ruin somebody's dignity. So I think that is also where as the young people, we must ensure responsible usage of the social media and then using it to attack other people out there. That will not be quite well, because if at all we are attacking, we must attack very, very much well, and we must attack for the right reasons to make sure there is change. So if I attack you, and if I happen to also tweet something about you, or post it on Facebook or WhatsApp apps, understand that this is actually not to ridicule you, but to also make sure that we get the right information and get the right also the answers to what we are expecting out of you in there. Now, Mr. Gashumba's reflection on family, also long-standing ties with Buganda, also after also a long period of time, and expressed deep regret to strain also from the same instance, and also regrets the same results of what also he did in there. And now the meeting ended up on a positive note with symbolic handshake and reaffirming a renewed bond of brotherhood, which is actually something quite well. And Gashumba acknowledged that it takes maturity to admit one's wrongs and express readiness also to move forward, demonstrating humility in the process. It's actually the way to go. If I happen to offend you, if I come to you and say, sorry, please, this is what I did, please forgive me, because I might be able to solely maybe attack you for different reasons, or here and there, but if I come to say, sorry, please, find that space in your heart to also really forgive, because there's nobody who is perfect. Even you whom I offended is not perfect, and this is what I want each one of you out there to emulate. And you who is watching me right now, if at all there are people whom you have offended out there, please find time to apologize so that you move at par, because if at all you're not moving at par, then development is going to be affected. Unity also promotes development, and disunity undermines development. So I think at the end of the day, to avoid people being divided, we must be able to solely live together, and that would make it quite possible for us to solely attain certain issues here and there, and that would also be able to make sure that we attain the kind of development that we would want to realize as a country. And that's where we're going to be leaving that discussion aside. And now to look at also what's happening in health, because usually we say health is wealth. If at all you're sick, most of the money that you are having will be going in terms of treatment. If at all there's any sick relative, trust me, the money you are going to be having will most likely to go into health. And that is where we must be able to mind of our health. And this is also the following concern after where we are seeing the cases of Mpox registered in Nakasongola rising to 21, and there is now call for urgent support in the district in there. Because if you look at what's happening also as a result of Mpox, recently the team was here in Arua district, the cases are not quite many, but in Ajuma district we recently registered one case, and that's where we shall be able to solely talk about it later on. But also that is where we are still seeing now Nakasongola district is facing what we call a growing health crisis, with 21 Mpox cases already registered and 9 additional suspected cases currently under investigation. And that means we must be able to solely work towards making sure that this disease does not eat Arua, maybe also enter West Nile and northern Uganda at large, because if you look at West Nile, already we have one case which was registered in Ajumani, and we hope this does not spread to the neighboring districts, and this does not maybe spread to the neighboring colleagues, because if you look at Mpox, much as it is a curable disease, it can also lead to death, and also it can make one become blind, because if you look at the eyes, sometimes it makes pus come through the eyes, but if at all you do not get treatment early, you risk those factors. So to avoid all those challenges, to avoid all those risks, we must be able to solely improve on our health in there. Now, local health authorities, district officials, and international organizations are also collaborating to curb the spread of the virus with urgent support needed, and that is also an area where we did see, led by Dr. Agawa, the district health team, confirming the cases, reporting that also 84 identified contacts, and 67 have been traced so far, and the majority of whom are infections also concentrated in Luampanga Town Council, with 13 cases also recorded. Other cases are also being reported, that's across Luampanga sub-county, Karunji sub-county, where there are 3 cases, and also 1 case reported from Rabaita sub-county. Wabinyoni reported in 2 cases, and Nakasongola Town Council with also already 2 cases being registered in there. But now, how can you be able to avoid Mpox? This is where somebody may be interested in wanting to understand how they can be able to resist themselves from Mpox. And this is where I'm saying to actually avoid contracting mpox is quite simple. First of all, avoid close contact with persons whom you suspect could be having this disease. Avoid contact with them. And one of the ways you are going to be avoiding contact is actually avoiding sex, because this disease is actually promoted and also spread through sex intercourse. Because even if you put on the protection gear, the condoms, still you can be able to sort of contract this disease, because it is a disease which is of body contact, and around the private parts, it's actually most common in there, and most of the signs are actually seen around the private parts. So if you see somebody with spots, please do not engage in sexual intercourse with them, because that is where you may be able to contract the disease at the end of the day. So it is quite important for us to avoid close contact. Then secondly, washing hands using clean water and soap or sanitizer. That is another standard operating procedure of the mpox, which we must also be able to abide by. And thirdly, reporting the cases early, even if it is a suspected case. It's not offensive. Find out time, report yourself. That is the nearest health facility, so that solely investigations can be carried out to see if at all you are indeed sick of mpox. Because if you look at mpox, many people out there could be maybe suffering from this disease, but many of them had know they have the disease. So it is quite important for them to also really ensure that they not become part of the mpox cases. Because if you look at the mpox statistics, we are seeing very many people also having this disease. So it is quite important at the end of the day for them to also really avoid close contact, avoid handshakes, and wash hands daily with clean water and soap and sanitizer, and that is where you will be avoiding yourself from contracting mpox, because mpox is really a disease which I must say is a challenge. That's to Western sub-region and the entire country, because if at all it contracts you, it becomes dangerous to also end in here. That's why we're going to be leaving a discussion aside still within what's happening in the world of health, and this time around with what's happening in the world of HIV. Masini pastors are said to be increasing HIV drug resistance and treatment failure in the area, and this is also where we are seeing pastors in Masini district have been accused of increasing the risk, that's of drug resistance, to HIV patients, and HIV also treatment also failure in the districts, and that's also where they are being blamed. And now the Masini district health of HIV focal person Oliver Nyangoma says that pastors are also misleading the people on drugs, especially when it comes to also the viral load, which also have been suppressed in there. Now it has also taken a prescribed HIV medicine, which reduces the amount of HIV in the body and to very low level, which keeps the immune system also working and prevents illnesses. And this is also called the viral suppression, defined as having also less than 200 copies of HIV per milliliter of blood. And also, if you look at the issues of HIV today, it is actually a disease which also the patients are being subjected to stigma. But I'm saying we must not subject the HIV patients to stigma. Because of that, we have seen today many patients also abandoning what we call the HIV drugs, and at the end of the day, it is also them that suffer the most. We have seen people dying as a result of the HIV because it weakens the immune system. And to avoid that, we must also avoid and maybe unfaithful sexual partners and multiple partners also where we may get in position to also really find ourselves being positive in there. Secondly, let's use protection. And thirdly, those who are infected, we must continue with our drugs. We must continue sorting out our drugs, because it's not the end of life. With or without HIV, we can still die because people have died as a result. So why must you be worried? Why must you be worried of HIV? And we have seen people who have HIV living longer. So let's continue sorting our drugs. Let's continue being on medication, and that would also really help us live longer. And that's where we're going to be leaving the discussion in the second hour. When it comes to the first half of these discussions, we are going to be taking a short commercial break. My name is Farish Majid, and I want to welcome you on board. In case you're just joining us, don't you dial anywhere. We are bouncing back shortly.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
Mbappe! Jude Bellingham, Vinicius Jr., Lamine Yamal, Antoine Griezmann. La Liga comes to Star Times.
A wild celebration!
The big stars, the tiki-taka football, Real Madrid and Barcelona live in your living room.
Real Madrid, the team of dreams!
Catch all 380 games live and in HD on Sports Premium Channel 259 and Channel 246 starting this August 15th. Subscribe to StarTimes Classic or Smart Bouquet at 36,000 Uganda shillings to enjoy the football experience affordably. StarTimes Football and Limited Passion.
West Nile TV, lighting up the region.
All right, counting down to about 6 minutes to end up with the discussions, and this is where we are going to be looking at some of the stories happening elsewhere. And I really want to say so many things are already happening, and later on I will be connecting to our correspondents that is in the Madisa region to also give us an update on how the different local governments are preparing for what we call the National Independence Day celebrations, which is actually tomorrow, where Uganda is marking 62 years after independence. But how is the mood like? I want to show you in a rural city, we are going to be seeing a lot of night happenings because people are already preparing for that. And I was able to hear many people preparing to also visit some of the happening places, but I'm saying we must enjoy with cautions. And in the rural areas, we are likely to witness a lot of local derbies, or what we call local discos. But all in all, our girls must be protected. And as a parent out there, we must also issue out this warning to them. We must share with them, because even if you still protect them, the girls may sneak. So it is high time we encourage them not to go for these discos in there, because if they go still, we are going to be seeing challenges happening in there. And that is how we want now to connect to our correspondents in Jumani and Moyo, but starting off with Moyo to see how this day is and how the mood is ahead of the celebrations. Because if you look at the celebrations, then you realize many people could be also really preparing for this day, and that would also really be possible for us to understand how this is going. And now let's connect Dominic Anton Okumu, our correspondent from Moyo, representing Madisa region, to also let us know how and what exactly the people are doing when it comes to preparations ahead of the national celebrations. Anthony, good morning.
Good morning, Paris.
Yes, how is the mood ahead of these national celebrations?
Well, generally, the mood seems to be normal, but then the preparation is in high gear,
Okay.
especially among the security personnel and the students, because as I talk right now, they are for their final training at the Celestial Stadium where the venue is going to take place for the district.
Okay.
So they are preparing, and I believe the preparation is in high gear.
Okay.
Yeah.
Really, I want to understand something. How is the Independence Day celebrations that side? Because earlier on this morning, I was sharing with my neighbor. She was actually planning to go and celebrate this from where she comes from. How is it like, maybe when it comes to rural areas, when it comes to celebrations?
Well, here in Moyo, it is not something that actually people really take it too serious as such. But in most cases, it is being, celebrated, and people usually go for it in terms of the parade. It is actually the most attractive thing here, which also, brings people from the different corners of the district. That is when actually people come close. But when it comes to the really celebration where people really have become asked and wanting to participate,
Okay.
it's not that big as such. But the ones within the district who can be able to make it to Chele Stadium usually come.
Okay.
But in most cases, they are the people who come nearby, not really the ones from a far distant place
Okay.
who would want to come to the district venue.
Okay. So what are we
Yeah.
like? Finally, maybe what are we anticipating tomorrow? What are we likely to see ahead of these national celebrations, given the mood that we're having right now?
Well, I think the celebration is something great, and people usually celebrate, though not really at the district venue, but I believe also in the villages people celebrate, and in most cases, the celebration actually goes to its climax in the evening hours when, you see people going out to celebrate, go out with their family members and stuff like that. But in the morning hours, in most cases, it is just like the people within who go and watch the parade, and after the parade, they attend a few, speeches from the district leadership. And those days, what they used to do is they used to also invite people from South Sudan, especially from Kajukeji. That is a central Equatoria state. But this time round, I actually tried engaging the chief administrative officer yesterday about it, whether they're going to invite these people from the neighboring state, and then they said they're not so sure about this time round, whether they're going to come, because in terms of the invitation, it's a little bit costly, and of which the district also doesn't have that much resource for, organizing the day. So I believe it is just going to be a normal celebration for people within, and that is how it's going to be like.
All right. Thank you so much. Maybe any last words?
Well, my last word is people should really celebrate the day carefully, and they shouldn't over-celebrate.
Okay. Thank you so much, Alfred, for that report in there. And we are still following up to see how this day will be going on tomorrow. But the mood I want to say right now is that people are excited, and many people are actually waiting for the day to come, because tomorrow is a public holiday where learners will not be going to school. But still, I will be here to also let you know what exactly is happening, and that is also to keep informed, and we remain committed to keeping you informed at all times and at all specters, and that's really where you must also be in position to be part of West Nile TV. In come tomorrow, we shall be also here to let you know of what exactly is maybe happening and why Uganda must be able to sort of celebrate this day in here. Now let's connect the neighboring Adjuma district, where our correspondent Onjima Alan is to also let us know of the mood ahead of the Independence Day celebrations. Alan, you're most welcome.
Yeah,
Yes, you're live, yes.
Yes, Majid, this is Onjima Alane in Adjumani district for West Nile Television. As per Independence date of 9th of October 2024, Adjumani district is celebrating its independence at the Biaya Primary School ground on on Wednesday, as I can see around, I see schools around districts are really preparing themselves. They are doing parades for tomorrow's Independence Day, which will be colorful for 2024 October 9th Independence celebrations, which will be at Biaya Primary School.
Okay.
Reporting for West Nile Television,
Yes.
Onjima Alan.
Yes,
Onjima.
Alan, before you go on, I want to sort of ask your experience.
Yeah.
How did you used to celebrate this day? Because I've had a lot of stories, I've had a lot of experience. When it comes to the Independence Day celebrations, I remember how I used to be a member of the marching crew in there. How is it like? Do you have any memories to Independence Day celebrations? Because I've had a lot. When it comes to police ground, I have a lot of memories tracing back maybe that time. What about you?
Yeah, of course. Your question is okay. In Ajuman district, normally, sometimes when in the real date of 9th of October, which is like that, normal district officials have to push the date on another day.
Okay.
But the one for Ajumani district, this year will be tomorrow, and it will be celebrated tomorrow, and marvelous of pupils in different schools and the secondary schools will be joining the parade. Yeah.
So should I ask, have you ever celebrated this day?
Yeah, of course.
How was the memory? Maybe what memory do you have?
What I can remember was during my days of primary is we used to be in a Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts, marching here and there and see how we really praise our country, Uganda. Of course, it's been getting independent during the years of 1962. So those days it used to be so colorful, but now I'm seeing the meaning is trying to change this time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Me, I'm still remembering to see if at all the songs of Fiona will be sung again. I will be following that tomorrow to see how this will be going on. Thank you, Alan, for that report. And we are still looking out to see the mood ahead of the Independence Day celebrations. But we are saying Uganda actually got independence on the 9th of October, which is tomorrow, and today is already 8th. We are counting down hours, not even days. We are now counting down hours to the national celebrations are in there, and Busia will be hosting the national celebrations for this country and this time round, and other districts will be celebrating from their various locations. And all in all, we are going to be following up to see how the leaders also maybe speak out and how the day ends in there, because if you look at the Independence Day celebrations, many times we still see people being appraised, we see people being also really recognized, and this time round we are still going to be seeing how this ends. And leaving that aside, new power tariff excites Kalangala. This is also another story where we now need to also talk about in the evening of this hour, where industrialists, cottage industry owners and leaders in Kalangala district are optimistic about the newly revised power tariffs announced by Electricity Regulatory Authority, ERA, which is the body that ensures regulation when it comes to power costs. And according to the district leaders, the new tariffs on Bugala Island have been reduced to shillings, that is 275 for domestic consumers. That is also by shillings 275 for domestic consumers, and also shillings 673.4 for commercial users, a move expected to boost the growth of cottage industries. And Mr. Rajab Samakula, the Kalangala District LC5 chairperson, expressed excitement about also the development, saying the district is now actively seeking land to establish industrial parks. And that is one area also which we must also be able to sort of advocate for in terms of also the West Nile sub-region and other areas. Our power tariffs are still said to be very much high, and yet we have the land for building industrial parks. How is this going to be possible if at all power still remains expensive? So I think there's need for us to advocate and also continue asking for the reduction when it comes to the power tariffs, just like Kalangala in there, and that would also make us realize a lot when it comes to industrialization here, because industrialization actually requires power, and if the power is quite expensive still, people are going to be finding it very much difficult to afford, and that will at the end of the day put off many people when it comes to accessing and also really developing some of these issues in now until September. Domestic power, also consumers were paying shillings 1,269.5 per kilowatt. Commercial, also the consumers were charged 1,600.31 power, and that's something which at the end of the day, which many people found out very much expensive. And today it's the same thing happening in Arua, where the power units are actually said to be at least more than 1,000. So how ready are we for all this? And how can we be able to solely advocate for reduction when it comes to this power also in there? Because if at all power is still expensive, then many people are not going to be finding it accessible and also easier to buy the power in there. And until September, we are still seeing those being very high. And the rates had for long also discouraged power consumption in the district. And that is also an area which the people also really must be able to sort of work on and also really make sure that there is also improvement when it comes to also the issues of power in there. Now that is follow the also installation of marine cable at the bottom of Lake Victoria, also connect the island to the national grid. And with the connection to the national grid, we are expecting power also price drop. But Western sub-region, where we are connected, the power prices have still remained the same. What does that mean to the ordinary citizen out there who is also really being pushed and also being encouraged to also have the connectivity and the rural connectivity where there are people paying just 54,000. All they need to do is have their houses wired and inspected, and they apply for this. And that is only where they get the power. And if the power costs are still expensive, we are going to be seeing people with meters, we are going to be seeing people who are wired, but they cannot afford to buy power. So I think that is also an area where ERA must also think about it when it comes to Western sub-region, and that is one area where we must also really be able to advocate for. And this goes to our leaders to continue with the pressure, the members of parliament whom we have in numbers here, to also really go back and also really advocate for this power, because I do understand some of the areas even still do not have this power reached to them. As much as we're talking about West Nile being connected to the national grid, some areas still do not have the power. Let's talk about areas like Obongi, where there's no pole, where they're not connected to the national grid, where they're not even connected to even power, maybe power line that is generated. They entirely depend on solar and other forms of electricity. So what does that mean when it comes to the issues of darkness? So I think the issue of security is still going to remain a challenge and something which we must also advocate for and work towards, because if we want to realize improvement in security, and that is where we would be able to solely see that also possible in there. Now that is one area where we did see on ERA's October announcement confirmed the domestic consumers will now pay shillings 994.5 per kilowatts per hour, and while commercial customers will be charged, that is shillings 673.3 per kilowatts, and that is one area which at the end of the day, which also we must also be talking about. Meanwhile, medium industrial consumers with a maximum demand of 500 kVA will pay shillings also 673.4 kWh, and that is one area also which also comes as an advantage to them. And large industrial consumers will also really be able to also be catered for under this new development in here. Now, despite the tariff reductions, power supply issue is persistent also in there, and an area which also we feel must also be addressed on. Mr. Joseph Molindwa, the spokesperson for Kalangala Infrastructure Services, also attributed the ongoing load shedding to problems of the Masaka aside marine cable, which is being developed, and that is why they are still witnessing load shedding. And today, are we seeing load shedding? I definitely want to say no. At least there's some bit of improvement, and there's hope that we must also continue advocating for now the reduction of the power, as much as we are seeing some stability when it comes to power now as we got connected to the national grid. But areas within also the rural area, urban areas are still witnessing load shedding, and that's slowly happening, where we also seeing alerts after alerts. But we are hopeful at the end of the day the alerts will go down, where we shall be seeing maybe alerts coming on after a long period of time. But we are still following up to see that all the areas have power at all times, and that is where we are going to be leaving the discussion aside. And now to summarize the entire discussions with what is happening outside the country. Author goes on trial, that's for downplaying Rwanda genocide, is another story we are seeing, where a court in France was due to open also the trial of one author, accused of downplaying the 1994 genocide in Rwanda that claimed thousands and thousands of lives. That's of the Tutsi in there where people were killed. And now an author in the names of Charles Onana, 60 years of age, also really an author of the Rwanda, The Truth, also about Operation Tukis, also really is now also really facing charges after the book which was published in 2019, faces charges of denial and minimizing of the Rwanda genocide, and that is where he's facing charges today. And at least 1 million people, the majority of whom also were the majority ethnic Tutsi, were slaughtered inside the 100 days between April 7th and July 4th of 1995 in Rwanda, in the genocide in there. And that is today where this man is also in trouble over also that writing in there. Now the ethnic killing is officially recognized by the UN as genocide, but French Cameroonian writer Onana said it was not a premeditated act, but a violent struggle for power. And that is also really where he is now facing charges, and he has to stand before the courts of law. And Mr. Onana also said that the idea that the Hutu government had planned also a genocide in Rwanda was one of the biggest scams of this last century, and he did also not accept that in there. Now the 60-year-old writer, and he's publishing, that's already director Editions du Touga and Damien Sarivier in the name that written in France, is already facing challenges in there, but we are still saying Camille Lassef, campaigner manager also really for Survive, told AFP that the trial of Onana also really will be historic, since there is not also really any case law, strictly speaking, against also the related also instances in Rwanda in there. But today many people also died as a result of also that issue in there. Now he denied France had played a part in the genocide, but also admitted that they had not only heeded warnings of also really what we call impending killings, and for too long also really valued silence over examination of truth. And that is where we see the author also really denying all those. And writing in Rwanda's The New Times on September 30th, Tom Dahiro, an author also and researcher at the Interdisciplinary Genocide Studies Center, said Mr. Onana's denialism is also not a mere also scholar's error, and that is also something where he must also be facing charges according to also many people in there. And he realized people have also tweeted about this, where other authors and other people from Rwanda also have come out to also talk about this issue about the genocide that also we did see happening in Rwanda that claimed many lives in there. And leave that discussion aside, and now looking at what's happening in other stories. And this is the entertainment world, where we are seeing the mother of Son PDD has also come out to say that the son is not a monster, and that is something where we are seeing where the mother of Son Diddy has also said that she is devastated and profoundly saddened by the allegations leveled against her son, and saying that her son is not a monster, and all those are lies. And the musician also known for his hits way back in 1997, Will Be Missing You, was also already on charges of sex trafficking and racketing also really last month. And many people are actually today talking about this issue, where you move, where people think that you know very much about entertainment industry. People ask you, what did Son Diddy do? And you have to answer that he had also charges of this and that. But what is happening to these stars? So it means that just like these superstars, our local stars must also be able to learn something from that. Much as you are saying that you're a local artist, you're a local this and that, please, you can still be held responsible under the law in there. So that means we must be able to solely desist from some of the activities that may land us in trouble in there. Now that's where we're seeing he's also currently being held in Manhattan detention center, also after being denied bail in there, and today is in jail. Now the statement also was attributed also by Small Combs, and the Combs family also, and was issued by her lawyer Natalie G. Figures, and that also got the man in trouble in there. Today many of the singers are actually facing challenges. Not only Son Diddy, R. Kelly is also still facing and battling the same challenges. And recently we also did see Jamaican star that is in the names of Vybz Kartel being released from jail after spending very many days in there, and today he's free. So that means as superstars, you may be in the entertainment industry, as a musician, as a drama actor, as a movie director, still mind about your life, mind about those who are pursuing you, mind about those who are going to be putting you in trouble. But that's not also something we are going to be talking about. More of that I will be coming in through, that is at the Chukuchuku time, from 5 to 7 p.m. as we shall be having Mosh together with Liz Honey and also MC Sarge, not forgetting Hassan the Big Brother, who will be giving you more of that happening later on. And that is also where we are just giving some hint on what is happening in there. But all in all, we must be mindful of our lifestyles, because if at all you're not minding of our lifestyles, that is how we shall be able to also see ourselves in trouble. And summarize the discussions with what's happening in the world of sports, where we are seeing one of the athletes has now died at the age of 27. And this is a former also really winner when it comes to also really junior world 800 meters in the terms of champion Bet, has died at the age of 26 years, and former junior world 800 champion Bet dies at the age of 26 years. Still as a young person, we have lost him, and we are still mourning also with the people of Kenya in there, where they lost this athlete in there. Now, former world under 20 athletics champion, that is Kipyegon Bet, has died at the age of 26 years at that's Kenya in there after a short illness. Now the 800-meter specialist won his junior world title, that's in 2016, and then took bronze at the senior world championships in London in the following year. However, in his career, he was halted in 2018 when he was also really handed a 4-year doping ban, and the ban also left him struggling for his return. That's also to fame in there, and that is also something which we did see also ending his career in there, because if you look at the issue of drugs, today it is actually a challenge amongst many sportsmen who are battling these charges. And today we did see also really one player who is a former Manchester United player, that's only in the names of Paul Pogba, who was also really suspended under the same charges of doping. We saw him also really being dropped the charges. That means the charges are being reduced, and that means he will be spending the next 4 months. That means next year we shall be seeing him also really returning in action. That's also for Juventus in there after the ban being reduced also in there. But what does this send as a signal to all the players, not only the superstars at the limelight, but all the players? What does that mean when it comes to the issues of drug abuse? It means that we must desist from drug abuse if at all we are engaging in sports. And that is where we are going to leave the discussion aside. More details of what's happening in the world of sports will be coming through with Owen Ezaga and Nida Suzy from 2 to 3 p.m., where they will be giving that comprehensive and detailed analysis of what's happening in the world of sports, right from what is happening at the regional leagues up to international scene. With that, we come to the end of the discussions. My name is Farish Majid, and I want to wish you happy independence. I will be joining again tomorrow. I want to say have a good day, and from me to you, it's a goodbye. Let's link up again tomorrow. I'm out.